Welcome back to Eternal Bible Stories, where real near-death experiences become divine revelations, unlocking secrets of the unseen world and proving that eternity is closer than you think. Today we're about to share one of the most shocking near-death experiences I have ever encountered. A story that completely shattered the beliefs of a devoted Christian preacher. He spent his entire life preaching about God, convinced that he was serving him wholeheartedly. But one tragic accident threw him into a terrifying reality, a place he never imagined he would see, hell, and there he witnessed something that shook his very soul. Queen Elizabeth, engulfed in eternal fire. How could a powerful ruler like Queen Elizabeth be imprisoned in hell? Did she harbor a dark secret that remained hidden during her lifetime? And could it be that what she revealed in her final moments was so terrifying that it left this preacher utterly shaken? Buckle up, because what you're about to hear might change the way you see eternity forever. If you're watching right now, let us know where you're tuning in from in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss these life-changing stories. Hello, Eternal Bible Stories. First and foremost, I want to express my deepest gratitude for accepting to share my story. Many places have rejected it, perhaps because what I am about to recount is too unbelievable, too shocking. But as a Christian evangelist, I cannot remain silent. The truth must be revealed, because too many people have yet to realize what is coming. My name is Solomon Carter, and I have spent more than 30 years of my life as a Christian evangelist. I traveled far and wide, from bustling cities to small remote towns, spreading the word of God, convinced that I was fulfilling my divine mission. I always believed that my faith was firm, that I was a dedicated servant of God. Every day I woke up early, prayed, and then began my work, visiting families, attending gatherings, and even organizing large outdoor events to preach the gospel. I was certain that I was living exactly as God intended me to. But then, one day, everything changed. I was in a car accident, a moment that seemed like just a tragic event, yet in reality, it became the gateway to something I had never imagined. What I experienced at the edge of life and death made it impossible for me to see the world the same way again. It didn't just change my life, it completely transformed the way I understood the spiritual realm. And now, I know that I cannot remain silent about what I have witnessed. It was a peaceful afternoon as I drove through the French countryside, heading to another town for my next sermon. The sun shone brightly and worship music played on the radio. Lost in thought about the evening's message, I failed to notice the sharp curve ahead. By the time I realized, it was too late. The car skidded, flipped multiple times, and crashed violently. A searing pain shot through my body, then nothing. Silence. For a moment, I thought I was dead. But then, something strange happened. I felt myself floating above the wreckage, looking down at my own body, lifeless and bloodied. People rushed toward the scene, calling for help, yet no one could hear me. It was then I understood. I was outside my body, experiencing something beyond the physical. Moments later, an ambulance arrived, and I watched as paramedics pulled my body from the wreck, urgently working to keep me alive. One of them said, "He's in critical condition. We need to move fast." I wanted to scream, to tell them I could hear everything, but I was trapped in this unseen state. As they rushed me to the hospital, I hovered above the ambulance, witnessing their desperate attempts to stabilize me. Upon arrival, doctors and nurses worked frantically, connecting me to machines, administering treatment. Then something even more surreal occurred. The hospital walls began to dissolve, and suddenly I was in a place beyond the physical world. Suspended between life and death, I realized I was stepping into a reality far greater than anything I had ever known. It was a peaceful afternoon as I drove through the French countryside, heading to another town for my next sermon. The sun shone brightly and worship music played on the radio. Lost in thought about the evening's message, I failed to notice the sharp curve ahead. By the time I realized, it was too late. The car skidded, flipped multiple times, and crashed violently. A searing pain shot through my body, then nothing. Silence. For a moment, I thought I was dead. But then, something strange happened. I felt myself floating above the wreckage, looking down at my own body, lifeless and bloodied. People rushed toward the scene, calling for help, yet no one could hear me. It was then I understood. I was outside my body, experiencing something beyond the physical. Moments later, an ambulance arrived, and I watched as paramedics pulled my body from the wreck, urgently working to keep me alive. One of them said, "He's in critical condition. We need to move fast." I wanted to scream, to tell them I could hear everything, but I was trapped in this unseen state. As they rushed me to the hospital, I hovered above the ambulance, witnessing their desperate attempts to stabilize me. Upon arrival, doctors and nurses worked frantically, connecting me to machines, administering treatment. Then something even more surreal occurred. The hospital walls began to dissolve, and suddenly I was in a place beyond the physical world. Suspended between life and death, I realized I was stepping into a reality far greater than anything I had ever known. His presence was overwhelming, both comforting and terrifying. Every being, whether good or evil, turned away in submission to his authority. At first, I thought he had come to rescue me, to return me to my body, or take me to a better place. But when the angel spoke, I realized I was wrong. He had come to judge me. His voice thundered like a storm, not just around me, but within me. "Solomon Carter," he declared, and my name in his voice sent shivers down my spine. "You made promises to God that you did not keep." The words struck like a physical blow. I wanted to protest, to say I had dedicated my life to preaching, but before I could respond, my mind was flooded with memories. I saw the times I ignored God's call to minister in difficult places, choosing comfort over sacrifice. I saw moments when I felt urged to help someone in need, but turned away out of inconvenience. The angel continued, "You have ignored the warnings of the prophets and servants I sent to guide you." Suddenly, faces of people I dismissed as fanatics flashed before me. Now I realized they had been messengers of God, voices of correction that I had refused to hear. Every compromise I had made was laid bare, and I could finally see the spiritual consequences of my choices. The weight of truth crushed me. I wanted to argue, but before divine presence, every excuse felt meaningless. "The spiritual debts you thought were settled still haunt you," the angel declared. I had preached repentance, yet I had never truly understood its weight. His judgment wasn't cruel, it was pure, undeniable truth. Just as I thought I could bear no more, the angel extended his hand. "Come," he said, "there is still more you must see." Fear gripped me, but I knew this journey was necessary. Hesitantly, I reached for his hand. The moment I did, a surge of energy coursed through me, cleansing and strengthening every part of my being. Instantly, the world around us shifted. We were no longer in the hospital. What I was about to witness next would forever change my understanding of the spiritual realm and the battle unseen by human eyes. In an instant, I was pulled from the hospital and thrust into the heart of a vast city. At first glance, everything seemed normal. People walking the streets, cars moving through traffic, life unfolding as usual. But as I looked deeper, another reality layered over this one, revealing an invisible war raging beyond human perception. The air was thick with spiritual entities, some radiant and glorious, while others grotesque and menacing, hovering over buildings and weaving through crowds. Demonic figures whispered into the ears of humans, fueling greed, anger, and despair. I saw them instigating conflicts between couples, corrupting the minds of businessmen, and luring young men into self-destruction. Yet, amidst the darkness, there was hope. I saw brilliant angels standing firm, shielding those who called upon God, strengthening the weak and waging relentless battles against the encroaching evil. The angel beside me turned and spoke, his gaze piercing. "This is the spiritual warfare you have neglected," he said, his voice heavy with meaning. A realization struck me with the force of a storm. I had preached about spiritual battles for years, but I had never comprehended the sheer magnitude of this war. He led me through the city, exposing the unseen influences at work. In schools, demons planted destructive ideologies in the hearts of children. In government offices, shadowy figures whispered deceit and corruption into the ears of leaders, shaping policies not for justice, but for control and personal gain. Every act of chaos, from accidents to political turmoil, was not mere coincidence, but the result of this ongoing struggle between light and darkness, constantly pulling at the souls of men. "You have preached, but you have not seen the battlefield," the angel continued. His words struck deep, forcing me to acknowledge my blindness. I had spoken of spiritual matters as if they were abstract concepts, yet here I stood, witnessing their terrifying reality. Among the people, I saw devoted Christians, some radiating divine light that repelled darkness, their faith a shield against demonic attacks. But others, whom I had once thought strong in faith, appeared vulnerable, their spiritual armor cracked, making them easy prey for deception. Troubled, I asked, "Why are some protected while others are left defenseless?" The angel met my gaze. "Faith is not in words or appearances. True strength lies in sincerity of heart and obedience to divine truth." His response forced me to reflect. How often had I judged others superficially? How many times had I relied on my ability to preach rather than my personal connection with God? Leaving the city's crowds, the angel led me to a quieter place. "There is more you must see," he said, his voice solemn. "Now we examine those who should be on the front lines of this battle." As we approached a series of churches, they appeared grand and welcoming, filled with people engaged in worship. But as I looked through my spiritual sight, horror gripped me. At the first church, the angel pointed to a deacon at the entrance, a man well respected in his congregation. But when I looked closer, I saw a dark aura surrounding him. "He lives a double life," the angel revealed. "To the church he is a servant of God, but in secret he indulges in adultery and deception." My heart sank. How could a leader live in such contradiction? Inside, I expected to see young believers devoted to God, but instead they were distracted by worldly desire. We moved to another church, even larger and wealthier than the first. The pastor stood at the pulpit, delivering a powerful sermon that captivated the congregation. Yet when I looked deeper, a horrifying truth emerged. "He hides a terrible secret," the angel said sorrowfully. "He produces pornography and promotes immorality under the guise of strengthening marriages within his congregation." I was appalled. How could someone entrusted with leading souls twist something sacred into perversion? I asked. "They distort what is holy to satisfy their flesh," the angel continued, "and many follow him, believing they are merely modernizing their faith." At the third church, the wealthiest of all, corruption was blatant. Luxury cars lined the parking lot, and inside, the most prominent seats were reserved for those who had given the largest donations. "Here," the angel said, "church positions are sold to the highest bidder." I watched as the wealthy were honored while the poor were ignored, barely acknowledged in the house of God. "They have turned the Lord's temple into a marketplace," the angel declared, echoing Jesus' words when he drove out the money changers. Here, faith is measured not by sincerity, but by wealth. As I observed, I saw demons moving freely through these churches, whispering into the ears of leaders, sowing pride, greed, and lust. These places, meant to be sanctuaries of truth, had become gateways for darkness. "How did this happen?" I asked, shaken to my core. "How did churches meant to stand against evil become so corrupt?" The angel looked at me with sorrow. "Many began with good intentions," he said, "but step by step they compromised, allowing the world to dictate their values. Little by little, the line between holiness and corruption blurred until they could no longer see their own downfall." I realized then the immense damage these churches had caused. Not only had they failed to protect their congregations, but they had actively led them astray. It was a betrayal of faith, a distortion of truth, all in the name of prosperity and influence. The angel turned to me, his gaze penetrating my soul. "And you, Solomon?" he asked. "How many times have you ignored corruption to protect your position? How many times have you softened the truth to please your audience?" His words struck me like lightning. I wanted to justify myself, to claim I had done my best, but I knew he was right. How many times had I turned a blind eye? How often had I diluted God's message to make it more palatable? "The responsibility of a spiritual leader is immense," the angel continued. "Every soul under your care is precious in God's eyes. The corruption you see here did not happen overnight. It is the result of countless small compromises, moments when truth was sacrificed for comfort." The weight of his words settled on my heart, heavy and undeniable. I knew that if I survived this experience, my ministry could never remain the same. I could no longer be a preacher content with comfort and approval. I had to be a servant of truth, no matter the cost. Then the angel spoke once more. "There is still more to see. What you have witnessed so far is only the surface. Prepare yourself, for what comes next will expose even deeper layers of deception." The air around us grew cold, a chilling presence creeping in, and I knew we were about to descend into something even darker than all I had seen before. I braced myself, knowing that what lay ahead would shake me even more than anything I had already witnessed. Suddenly, the scenery around us shifted in an unimaginable way. An unbearable wave of heat struck, scorching everything in its path, making me feel suffocated in the thick, sulfur-filled air. The oppressive atmosphere wrapped around me like an invisible force, and I knew we had just entered a place beyond the physical world, a place that could only be described in one word: hell. Flames leapt wildly around us, licking the jagged black rocks as if they were alive, while agonizing screams echoed endlessly from every direction. There was no doubt in my mind. This was the domain of the condemned, the souls who had rejected the truth and chosen the path of corruption. The angel beside me turned to look at me, his gaze stern and unwavering. "This is the fate of those who have denied the truth and willingly embraced depravity," he said, his voice reverberating through the air like an unalterable sentence. We walked through this nightmarish realm, and what I saw made me want to turn away, but the angel insisted that I watch. All around me, souls were being tortured in ways too horrific to comprehend, as if the sins they had committed in life were now haunting them for eternity. There was no escape, no pleading for mercy, for they had refused the opportunity to repent while they were still alive. Just as I thought I could endure no more, a familiar figure emerged from the sea of fire. My breath caught, and a wave of shock surged through me as I recognized the face. It was Queen Elizabeth. The regal crown and robes of power were gone. Instead, she sat there, consumed by agony, her eyes reflecting a despair beyond words. I was stunned. How could a woman once revered by the world be here? What had led her to this tragic fate? The angel, noticing my confusion, began to explain. "The powerful often hide secrets greater than the world can imagine. Queen Elizabeth made a pact with entities that do not belong to this world in order to maintain her power and influence." I frowned, struggling to grasp the meaning of his words, but he continued. He revealed that these entities, whom humanity might call aliens, were in fact dark forces that had been interfering with human history for ages. In her relentless pursuit of power, the Queen had allied herself with them, becoming part of a hidden agenda to control the world, a scheme that most people remained oblivious to. She hid the truth from the world, the angel continued, his voice tinged with sorrow. She helped these dark forces subtly manipulate humanity, turning them into slaves within a system designed to control and lead them away from the truth. And now she was facing the consequences of her choices, stripped of her title, her authority, and left only with an eternity of suffering and regret. Though I knew I shouldn't, something inexplicable compelled me to move toward her. As if by instinct, I bowed my head, a reflexive action as though she still held authority, even though her power had long been stripped away. A long, haunting silence enveloped us, broken only by the crackling of flames consuming the darkness. Then, unexpectedly, she spoke. Her voice was low yet commanding, resonating through the air as if each word carried an undeniable weight. "Listen carefully, traveler of the afterlife," she said, her eyes locking onto mine. "Remember my words, for they will come to pass." A shiver ran down my spine, despite the burning inferno surrounding me. How could a soul imprisoned in damnation still possess knowledge of the future? And yet, somehow I knew. I could not ignore what she was about to reveal. She inhaled deeply, as if gathering the remnants of her strength before she continued. "World War III will erupt, a war that will erase even the greatest empires from existence. Cities will be consumed by fire, kingdoms will crumble, and mankind will no longer fight for ideals or territories, but for food and water." Images flooded my mind, skyscrapers collapsing like dominoes, streets engulfed in flames, terrified masses fleeing with nowhere to hide. Governments would lose control, armies would be powerless to protect their people. War would not only rage between nations but within communities, neighbors turning against neighbors, former friends becoming enemies. I could feel the chaos, the kind of world where morality and compassion held no value, where only power determined who would live and who would perish. "No one will escape it," she continued, her voice laced with an unshakable sorrow. "It will be a great flood, not of water, but of blood and fire, a judgment that mankind has written for itself." She lifted her gaze to me, her eyes reflecting the glow of hellfire as she spoke, slowly and deliberately. "The United States government will collapse entirely, not because of an external enemy, but because of its own corruption from within." A chilling wave surged through my body as I saw a vision of America reduced to ruins. Once the greatest superpower on Earth, now nothing more than a wasteland. I saw the White House abandoned, government buildings burned to the ground, roads littered with bodies. Armed factions roamed freely, enforcing their own rule as law and order ceased to exist. The people, once so confident in their leaders, would finally realize that nothing could save them, not their money, not their influence, not their status. "America was once a symbol of strength and prosperity," she declared, her voice carrying the weight of history. "But it was also a kingdom built on deception and ambition. And when a foundation is laid on falsehood, it cannot stand forever." I wanted to ask what would happen next, but she continued before I could speak. "And yet, this is not the worst of it," she said, and this time her voice was lower, almost a whisper. "The eruption of the Yellowstone supervolcano will cover the sky, turning America into a land of the dead." A terrifying vision unfolded before my eyes. A massive column of ash exploding from the depths of the earth, soaring so high it swallowed the sun itself. Daylight vanished, plunging everything into eternal darkness. Millions of voices screamed in sheer terror as rivers of molten lava consumed everything in their path. I saw dried-up rivers, forests turned to wastelands of ash, cities buried beneath layers of suffocating dust. The air became poisonous, and those who remained alive could not breathe without gas masks. "This is the final punishment," she said, her tone no longer human, but that of a soul that had witnessed the end of all things. "When the skies are sealed with ash, when the waters turn to poison, and when the very ground becomes death, no one will survive. This will be the end of an empire." And yet, just as the darkness seemed absolute, her voice changed, a faint glimmer of something different breaking through the abyss. "But when all has been wiped away," she said, her eyes reflecting an indescribable light, "a new generation will arise. More visions unfolded, a world unlike anything before. Gone were the towering skyscrapers, the highways, the vast networks of commerce. Instead, there were endless green fields, small villages, people living simply, harmoniously with nature. They were free, not ruled by money nor bound by invisible systems of control. They lived like the earliest humans, but not in ignorance, rather in true freedom. They will be the ones to rebuild, to create a world without greed, without deception, without war," she continued, and for the first time I saw the faintest trace of a smile on her face. "But who will be the ones to enter this world, and who will be left behind in the ashes?" Her eyes bore into mine, and I knew that this question was not just for mankind, but for me personally. I felt my throat tighten. What I was witnessing was not just the deception of individuals, but of an entire system, a network of false leaders manipulating human souls for their own gain. I turned to the angel beside me, and his gaze pierced straight through me. "Have you ever compromised the truth, Solomon?" I froze. Memories flooded back. The moments I stood on the pulpit, hesitant to address controversial issues, afraid of losing my audience's support. The times I softened God's message just to make it more appealing. A cold realization gripped me. Had I already begun to drift down this path? The angel placed a firm hand on my shoulder, his voice now no longer stern but encouraging. "You still have time to correct your course, but remember, every small compromise can lead to complete downfall. The truth is never easy, but it is the only road to life." A blinding light erupted before me, and before I could react, an unseen force hurled me through an endless void. I plummeted at an unfathomable speed until, suddenly, agony consumed me. My eyes flew open to the glaring hospital lights. Chaos surrounded me, shouting doctors, beeping machines, frantic voices. I had returned. My body felt shattered, but no pain could compare to the burden now resting upon me. I had been given a second chance, but not for an ordinary life. Visions of hell, tormented souls, prophecies of destruction, and the deception within the church, all burned into my mind. I could never see the world the same way again. From the moment I awoke, I knew my ministry had to change. I could no longer preach as I once did, speaking words that pleased the crowd while sidestepping uncomfortable truths. The church was rotting from within, and I had been blind to it for too long. As days passed, my transformation became undeniable. I saw my past with painful clarity. A preacher on grand stages, admired by many, yet diluted by compromise. I had convinced myself I was serving God, but in reality, I had been swept into a system where power and popularity mattered more than truth. That could no longer be my path. I let go of every comfort. No more polished sermons, no more sermons catered to itching ears, no more seeking approval. My mission was now singular, to speak the unfiltered truth, no matter the cost. But truth comes with a price. Friends distanced themselves. Fellow preachers mocked me, calling me extreme, saying I was destroying my own ministry. Churches that once welcomed me now refused to hear me, unwilling to embrace the reality I had seen. Yet, I was not surprised. I had witnessed firsthand the corruption festering within many congregations. The commercialization of faith had turned shepherds into merchants, and those benefiting from this system would never accept a message that threatened their power. But I did not care. I could not unsee what I had seen. I would rather lose everything than continue feeding the lie. It was not just my message that changed, my entire life did. I no longer saw myself as a preacher in pursuit of crowds. My mission was not to entertain, but to wake people up, even if only one soul would listen. I spent more time in prayer, seeking God's voice, attuning myself to the unseen war that raged around us. This battle was not between men, but between light and darkness, truth and deception, and I had been given a second chance, not to remain silent, but to fight. I must warn people, not to terrify, but to prepare them. The world is nearing a breaking point. The prophecies of war, of collapsing governments, of the rise of a new generation, they are already unfolding. Time is short. Every conversation I have, every place I go, I will plant the seed of truth. I have returned, not to continue my old life, but to fulfill my mission. I seek no fame, no applause, no recognition. My only purpose is to open eyes before it is too late. I know the road ahead will be difficult, but I do not walk it alone. I have seen the fate of deceivers and the glory of God, and so I will go forward. I will speak the truth, and I will not stop, until the final door closes forever. Solomon Carter got a second chance, but not everyone will. His story isn't just another near-death experience, it's a wake-up call. He thought he was serving God, thought he was on the right path, but when he faced judgment, the truth hit him like a storm. How many of us are just going through the motions, thinking we have time to get it right? But when the moment comes, when we stand before God, will we be ready? Share your thoughts below the comment and where you're watching from. Don't let this message stop here. Someone you know needs to hear this. Share it with your family, your friends, anyone who needs to wake up before the door closes for good. The warnings have been given, and now the choice is yours. Please subscribe and turn on notifications. Stay with us as we bring more testimonies that challenge, reveal, and awaken.